Today's guest is Josh Fraser. Josh founded a digital marketing company in 2014 called Data Nerds, which has since evolved into a $20 million venture-backed tech company called Estated, where Josh is the CEO. Estated is a property data powerhouse with access to current and historical data for over 100 million properties across the United States. 140 million. He sits on the board at Accelerate Okanagan, which is a mentorship and coaching organization for tech startups in Kelowna, British Columbia. Josh embodies the 6 a.m. mindset in more ways than one, and I'm excited to explore how he does it. Welcome to the show, Josh.
It's nice to be here, bud.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about Estated? I think a lot of people understand property and data, but how do you take it and put it into a product?
So in 2014, 2015, like the search engine part of real estate hadn't evolved to a stage where it is today. So today you can go on a remax.ca or Zillow.com or Redfin.com, and you can essentially look up really any property that exists in, let's just say, North America, or we're more focused on the United States, so we'll stay there. So if you can look up anything on Zillow or Redfin, their entire platform is built. They're publicly traded companies, and they are focused on buying and selling real estate. So you can really only look up the homes that are for sale on those search engines. Now, at any given time, there's somewhere between 5 million and 10 million homes for sale in the United States, 10 million being the high. And like right now, in a kind of a weird market, weird economic conditions, it's at like 6 million. So what I was focused on was, how do I get access to the other 100 plus million properties and provide a search engine for those? Mm-hmm. You could look them up, but there'd be no information on them. Whereas like there's currently someone owns that house, there's a value to that house, there's structural information that people want to know about. And so that's kind of what began the journey to where we are today, to now we actually have ownership of a large amount of that data, and we package it and put it into products and sell it to some major organizations.
Crazy. And is it mostly B2B? There's no direct-to-consumer products?
We do have a consumer product that's a Carfax for homes that's been running under Data Nerds since 2014. It's got about 10,000 monthly subscriptions, like kind of a low volume. People look at anywhere from 5 to 10 properties on average per month. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't the long-term vision of the company. Like I think I had bigger, more ambitious, audacious goals than just having a $5 or $6 million a year company. And I knew that the B2C version capped out. And we started to get more inquiries about B2B. And so it's been a slog. It's been 2 or 3 years of very, very hard work. But I'd say 2020 itself, even with, COVID that came and decimated a lot of companies, while we were hit for a little bit, we've turned it around and we've had record revenues month after month for the last couple quarters. So, it's starting to be on that growth path again.
Yeah. So how exactly has COVID impacted your business?
So one of my favorite clients that we got to work with was Caesars Entertainment. And so they own a lot of hotels across the US. And every time a guest would check in, they would verify that the address that they used was actually their home. So they would cross-reference it and just validate it to make sure that there was nothing wonky happening. So clients like that would pay us $1,000, $2,000 a month, gone. Immediate cancels. So we lost nearly $500,000 worth of booked revenue. I was working really hard on closing a deal with Airbnb. We were working with companies like Vacasa and AvantStay. And it just felt like the entire hospitality industry in one shot was just gone.
Yeah.
So that sucked. Flip it around, try and go optimistically and look at it. We're like, well, now everyone's going to want to move. Because you're going to the migration patterns that we're seeing from large cities like San Francisco, Seattle, New York. People want to move out of town because COVID, the most grossest thing you could touch is your elevator button.
Yeah. No kidding.
So just weird things like that. People with families, they don't want to be in small homes anymore. And now that they work from home, you can move outside. So there's really cool. We're actually working with Google right now on migration patterns.
Really? Wow.
It's one of the coolest deals I think we've done in 2020.
Crazy.
And so there's other opportunities that came from it. So even home lending is probably one of our biggest sectors that we work in. Mm-hmm. So every time a mortgage application is written, they need the public record data. They need quality, accurate public record data. And that's what Estated sells.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And then in terms of your employees, have you found any sort of patterns where they're working more efficiently now or anything since it hit and they're working from home or?
Time will tell. We're very lucky to work with a neuroscientist on this. So we do
Really?
have someone that comes in monthly to talk to our team and then does one-on-ones every couple weeks with whoever on our team wants them. I think everyone's been engaging
Yeah.
for like 5 or 6 months now.
Okay. What are they trying to get out of the team?
Enhance productivity and stay happy.
Okay. Cool.
Work from home has been hard. Like, I think a majority of my staff are lucky because they don't have kids. They may have a dog and a significant other, but we're a part of that younger millennial generation still. When you get sent to work from home, your kids also aren't going to school. That's a very like different work environment. And the people that I've heard of that have worked with Jamie through that, I would say have like really worked to build good habits to still stay productive while the environment that they work in significantly changed overnight.
Yeah. Crazy. That's interesting, man. And I guess being the CEO, you're kind of the coordinator of it all. And everything kind of lands on you, you know. What has it been an emotional roller coaster through it all? Like, you know, or I don't know, you seem like a pretty cool, calm, collected guy, but when all this is happening, what does that feel like for you, you know? Like, does it feel like your whole baby is crumbling or?
I joke about this and I say it lightheartedly, but I had my COVID-19 moment in 2019.
Okay.
After we raised the venture capital,
Yeah.
and we scaled our team way too quickly. We embarked on a new product. We went to market and we failed. And within 6 months, I'd say we'd let go of or lost half of our staff. Like in one day, we let go of 8 or 9 people in March 2019. Hardest day of my life by far. I really had to look in the mirror through the rest of 2019 and figure out like, why were we still doing this? Like this go-to-market failed. And so I rode the roller coaster really, really hard in 2019 because I was like, what happened to my business? By the end of 2019, we had kind of figured it out. And I was still really passionate about what we do. And I'm really lucky to know that I care about real estate, technology, and finance. Like those are things that I'm intrigued by. And so 2020, when it kind of hit and like everyone was freaking out about COVID, layoffs started happening. They continue to happen. Revenues went to a halt. And a lot of CEOs got really scared. I actually felt arguably the most prepared I ever have.
Interesting. You'd already gone through a big struggle.
I went through the hardest one of my like young career, and it made me a better human, but it also like taught me that like, I joke that like you don't have to, when you're the CEO, you don't have to get on the roller coaster every day. Like some days you want to, because you want to ride the high, but it comes with the low. It always does.
Okay.
So someday I joke that I just am like, now I just show up at the theme park. Like I might have to work at the hot dog stand. I might have to go work on an arcade game that day. But like the roller coaster's there. It's available to me, but it's my choice if I want to get on it. And that's like a Jerry Kelowna thing that he taught me that years ago that I like. It resonates a lot with me.
Yeah, no kidding. That's so cool, man. I think like being a CEO, I'm sure everybody kind of assumes is this just you're at the top, you feel good the entire time. Do you know what I mean? Like, what do you think people get wrong about the CEO position?
Oh yeah, like a lot of times you just get like you get paid the most or something, so everyone thinks things are always good.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty vulnerable, like as is. I have my walls up in certain areas around like my personal life and my business life, but when things aren't good, like I'll let people know. And that was another one of the things I learned in 2019. It was like, if I'm not 85% like there, ready to go to something and do something, anything less than that, if I go, my performance is going to be shit. I'm probably going to harm a relationship rather than make it better. And the results will speak for themselves. And so I try and show up as much as I can, but I've also learned that like I need to do the things to keep my mental health and physical health in the right place to show up. And so like, I don't know. Yeah. If people think that the CEO's things are like job is always good and it's like unicorns and rainbows.
Because your bank account's good.
Sure.
Yeah.
I get to work the hours that I want. I get to take certain vacations that maybe not everyone does, but it's by far the hardest job, and it's the loneliest job.
Loneliest how?
Oh, it's just like as your company continues to grow, I feel like you have to keep a lot of cards to your chest, and you have to make a lot of strategic moves. And like the decision always falls on you. And so ultimately I have an amazing group of employees that I trust and I can rely on them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's my decision to make. And that needs to be done in like a lonely, isolated environment. And you have to spend a lot of time there to get comfortable with it. I don't mind it, but I have like seen younger CEOs go through it, especially when you're starting out, about how like lonely that job can be.
Interesting. Because it's kind of hard to relate to the other people in your business kind of thing. Is that a part of it? Like
Totally. Like you have complete autonomy of everything.
Yeah. Interesting. And you kind of mentioned keeping your mind and your physical body healthy to kind of help with those decisions or help with the roller coaster. What kind of practices do you do for that?
The ever evolving, I don't know, biohacking, we'll call it.
Yeah, totally. You're the person I know most who's like, I mean, we're drinking charcoal lemon water right now, right?
That's quite delicious.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man.
So I took a thing from like Good to Great with Jim Collins, probably back in like 2017, where every single, like I have an Excel sheet that literally dates back to tracking every day of what I've done for, what would it be? Almost 4 years now.
Wow.
It's a pretty large spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But I track all kinds of things. I think the current one that I had for July was like, what did I do for my workout that day? Did I spend some, like, what am I grateful for? That's been one that I still don't like always do it, but when I do, I always feel better. I'll just sit in like gratitude for a few minutes every day. I'll try and find a time right before I plug into work, in my Excel sheet, of course. I summarize kind of like how the day went, and then I just have like a score of like, it's binary. It's like 0 or 1. 1 was that a good day? 0 was it not a good day? And so
cool.
I think, like the physical fitness aspect is obviously something I'm probably like outside for 3 or 4 hours a day, whether it's this summer, golfing, boating, wakeboarding, cycling, running, whatever it'll be, put me outside and like, let me exercise a bit.
Yeah, totally. It just gives you that mental break so you can come back at full steam kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool, man. That's interesting. Has the position affected any other parts of your life? Like, I mean, I love focusing on like the negative side of it. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody talks about the positive side of being a CEO of a company, and like everybody says it's hard, but in my opinion, like some of the people that are at the top, their relationships aren't good. You know what I mean? They sacrifice time with loved ones. Like, in terms of being the CEO of a pretty successful company, have you found it affecting like love life, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, we could totally talk about the negative side.
Let's do it.
Love life for sure. Like, there are definitely times where when you're the CEO, I don't know, like on a personal note, like my schedule like runs me. So like, Monday through Thursday, I'm pretty plugged in. Like I can separate myself from it, but like no woman really wants to be like hanging out with her boyfriend and he's sitting there thinking about work. Like when you talk about the 5 love languages, like almost, I'd say a majority of people or women that I've dated in the past always were like quality times, like highest on my list. Gifts, sometimes touch, but like quality time definitely is up there. And I think that I've struggled in the last like 5-6 years of running this and like truly spending quality time with people because my mind's elsewhere. It's like grow the business into the empire that you want. So that's definitely a negative consequence. Oh God, the stress levels.
Yeah.
Like your employees can get mad at you and you have to be very comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Because if you ride that roller coaster and someone gets heated and you get heated, you are like, I use this like glass of water as like kind of like my trust analogy. Like you could spend 5 years building a relationship with someone, do something negative consequences, the glass is empty. And it only like to build trust again, it's just drop by drop by drop. And I think after my 2019 issue where I like blew up, I had a really horrible, poor, immature CEO. week, I would call it. It was really bad. It's taken me, 18 months almost to build that trust back where like I know my company right now could put their faith, have shown that they'll put their faith in me and trust in me to make decisions to better our company and take it to new heights. Mm-hmm. Whereas like a year ago, I don't think that they would have.
What did you do in that week that you wouldn't have done now 18 months later looking back on? Or how did you deal with things that you would have not dealt with now?
Yeah. Always looking for simple ways to explain things. One of the things Gary Keller from like Keller Williams says is praise in public and correct in private. So if I could rewind to that week in 2019, I should have collected all the information. I should have told everyone that they'd been working really hard and, doing an okay job, even though the product and go-to-market was a fail. I should have just collected data, and I should have done like the corrections in private. Mm-hmm. I should have taken people back to their offices after, had a quick like, this didn't work. This isn't working. How did you get there when the project was there? Like instead with like 15 people in a room, I lost my mind and was just
lashed out.
So passionate. Like, how could you possibly have worked on that for this amount of time and only achieved that, but been showing those data points every month that are inaccurate? And like there was such a discrepancy between like what we had promised to give to clients and what was actually what we owned. And I just lost my mind. Like inappropriate language, like pure anger, which never serves anyone.
Totally.
It's my baby. Like I've worked so hard on all of this stuff and I felt very betrayed. I was hurt. I felt like I'd been lied to. Mm-hmm. Like it was just like, and when you are looking someone dead in their eyes and they've like recently been lying to you about something that you really care about, there's pain there. And my reaction was just anger. And it was like totally lashing out. Just not the type of Josh I want to be as I get older.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think I remember like leadership is obviously one of my top passions. I love reading about it, this sort of thing. And, autonomy support is this concept that they use in, have you heard of self-determination theory?
Yes.
Yeah. So self-determination theory, they talk about autonomy support, right? And how basically when you go into a situation like that and you're the one yelling or losing your cool or whatever, it's because you're looking for some sort of control that's out of your control. But really what you're doing is you're taking away the control from the other people, right? And it's just this interesting kind of, we have these initial reactions that we want to, I guess, I don't know how you would describe it. You want to lash out on or just react, right? But there's that initial moment, and then you kind of take a step aside, and then you gotta, I don't know what I'm talking about now.
Well, you wouldn't. It's just like, it's not reacting to it.
Okay.
Like if someone does something that really irritates you, the best thing you can do is just not react. Like you go back to old school stoicism. Like you cannot control what other people do. You can only control how you react.
Yeah.
And what affects you. And I think what I've taken away from it is like that one, correct in private, that's huge. Mm-hmm. Like you embarrass someone when you lay into them.
Yeah.
I've been joking around lately, like, people ask me like, so what are some of like your biggest flaws? And I'm like, definitely like one of the harshest ones that I have to deal with in relationships is I've never learned like the pat slap method of like giving feedback of like here's something nice about you. You did a really good job at this, but you really screwed up here.
Okay.
The first two I've never understood. I've always just went to, you really screwed up here.
Yeah.
And it can be harsh and direct. And one of the things our investors told us was like brutal honesty delivered kindly.
Okay.
So I can go brutal honesty. Delivered kindly, I got to work on that. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just like, I've learned a lot from it. I think it's like being consistently level-headed which that's where like the physical and mental health aspect needs to
Mhm.
be very well taken care of
Mhm.
to handle those negative situations, which I can guarantee every single entrepreneur that listens to this, if you start a business and it grows to something that you probably envision it to be, there will be many, many negative situations.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like me even just starting my own business, I always remember people telling me that it was going to be hard, right? And you agree with them and you know it's going to be hard, but it's always hard in so many different ways than you think it's going to be hard, you know? Like for me, one of the hardest parts was like motivating myself to I could sit on the couch and do nothing today, but I'm going to go to the computer and get some work done. Do you know what I mean? Like that is difficult. Controlling yourself is difficult, you know? Um, so yeah, have you ever found anything like that where like motivation is an issue, or is that you're just so passionate about your company that it just happens?
Yeah, I'm pretty fired up about what I do.
Yeah, just go for it. Did you have to learn that though? Was that something over the course of building your business from when Data Nerds just started to where it is with Estated now? Was it always that fire was there, or?
It definitely started out like single minded on like make enough money to live a lifestyle that you want.
Yeah.
But after kind of like Techstars and, raising some venture capital, I think I started to realize that I was like, well, this isn't the end game. Money's not the end game. There's no way that I'll ever even make the amount of money that I want to make if that's my end game. And so that was when I started deep diving a little bit more, talking to a lot more therapists, personal development coaches. And I kind of like let my walls down around that, I don't know, group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I like pulled out 4 things, and I don't know if they'll be my things forever, but they're my things right now. And they're like health, like gotta have healthy relationships, business, personal, professional, whatever you call it. Having healthy relationships will just make you a happier human.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I'm like super passionate about. I also just care about like physically being healthy and mentally. I think that's like just important. Wealth. I freaking love money. Like I could talk about money all day, every single day. And if you run a business, I'll probably ask you about your money.
Interesting.
And I see no shame in it. Like, I think people are afraid to show their bank account sometimes. I'm like, the only way you're actually going to make money is if you're like really honest with yourself about this stuff.
Okay.
So health, wealth, real estate.
Yeah.
At a very young age, I saw the wealth that real estate can generate. And I just love houses. Like, this weekend I probably spent 8 hours driving around town just looking at houses.
Really?
And enjoyed every second of it. Like had a giant grin on my face. Like nearly ran out of gas because I was like so distracted by what else was going on.
Yeah.
And then technology. Like we live in the greatest time ever. Like when I think about being a kid, like VCRs and like iPods and Motorola Razr flip phones. Like now I can go sit out on the boat, put on a Wi-Fi hotspot, and like take a Zoom call on my MacBook and like screen share, a massive spreadsheet or even like watch a video with someone.
Yeah.
Like it's just a great time.
Totally.
And I have so many passions like in the technology space, and I think it's endless and it's always changing. So
interesting. Yeah. So you're saying that you worked on these 4 important things with like, what was it, a therapist, like a psychologist, or?
I was in a mastermind with like Thrive, Make Money Matter. Okay. And I'd say like, I just had enough people kind of like, what are you passionate about? Who's Josh Fraser? Like, why do you do what you do? What makes you tick? Mm-hmm. And I was so curious about it that I like needed to kind of like draw it out. And so I do all kinds of weird shit. Like I have basically a PowerPoint presentation of like the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And like, that's kind of my place to like whiteboard out my thoughts on like, what are things that make me tick? And then, after like few years of iteration, it's pretty clear to me now.
Okay. And what is clear? That those passions that you mentioned, like the money, the housing, or the real estate, that those are the things you want to focus on, kind of thing, and the health?
Or if I need to find motivation.
Okay. Gotcha.
I can just tap into one of those 4 things and I'll get like a little jacked up.
So do you have those moments then where you feel like you're not motivated, and then how do you tap in? You know what I mean? Do you just start looking at real estate again and then the fire starts rolling, or?
I'm pretty motivated, man.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, yeah, dude. And I'm in year like 6.5 now doing this. So this hasn't been a short, like it's the 10-year overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everyone sees.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey?
Like that's a real story.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So no, man, I know that just like what I'm doing is like, I think I was meant to be doing it. So I don't really feel too unmotivated, I guess.
Yeah, totally. That's cool. I'm reading Albert Einstein's autobiography right now, and I think the biggest takeaway I'm taking from it is that he's the most famous physicist of all time, but he had years of struggle where he like wasn't believed by anybody and couldn't even get a professorship anywhere, and it's
The
like
Walter Isaacson one?
Yeah,
So
totally.
good.
So good. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, his life wasn't as glorious as everyone thinks it was, but he also like he loved to experiment.
Yeah.
Like that guy's failed more times than like most families combined. I swear.
Do you find that has played any part in your success, just experimenting?
Oh yeah. Like I think it's one of our greatest skill sets at our company. It's why I think we're going to win against some like really, really large companies.
Really?
And we've shown little baby steps of progress, but like once we get to full speed, I think we've built like one of my favorite things to do used to be split testing websites.
Okay.
So that's when you have like page A, B, and C. They're all the exact same page, but you send 1, 2, 3 people to like each one. And if like one converts at 1% higher, if you send 10,000 people to each page, you pick that one, you change it up a little bit, and you just continuous iteration.
Mm-hmm.
We have been running those split tests with like hundreds of millions of views a year since day one. Well, like since we like actually had the traffic to do it. So
Interesting.
yeah, split testing and experimenting and failing and going in the wrong direction has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have several iterations of your website up now then, or?
Probably 10.
Yeah, 10 different ones. And how do you, I guess I'm naive in this, but like, how do you decide where the ones are going? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's very structured ways of doing this.
Yeah.
So like you can be tracking the entire funnel conversion of like, depending on which product you want them to buy. If a person that you target with ad A goes to website C, goes through, flow C1, C2, C3, whichever one is like going to convert higher, you just iterate that one. So you'll take those pages in the flow and just change them a little bit.
Yeah, super easy. Nice.
It's just continuous improvement, right? Like when it first started on Estated, the only thing we had was ask for data. So it was like, this is what we sell, fill out a form. And like the first time we tried it, we're like, oh, we got like 1,000 people came to the website and we got 5 forms or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, now let's change the website. Let's send another 1,000 people. And the goal is to get 10 forms.
Okay.
And so it starts out really simple like that. But like, even I've heard that like Facebook right now is like well over 30,000 editions of it, like being tested on like cohorts of people.
30,000. Crazy. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. What would you say is your biggest challenge right now? Let's say in business and in personal life. What's challenging you? What are you working towards?
Well, I just did the most complicated real estate deal in my personal life I've ever done. So I made an offer on a new house. I put a rental house up for sale, and I'm in the middle of a 6-figure, huge renovation / restoration from a flood in like a really nice lake house. So that's been challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of learning curves. I also bought a house without a real estate agent.
Okay.
So I acted as my own real estate agent. So that was also like a little bit unique.
That's something you can do?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Saved $70,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that. How do I do that?
You like can still work. Like I have a realtor who I've like bought a bunch of stuff through, good friend. So he like kind of helped guide me through it.
Okay.
And he knew that like if I was going to sell my house, I was going to give him that sale. So he's going to get paid from that deal.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, he was just like, yeah, Josh, like, here's an offer letter. I filled out an offer letter. I copied it from other offer letters I've made in the past. I had my lawyer sign it and I sent it to them.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot simpler than you'd think.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of assume that it's just you have to have a real estate agent.
Yeah, you don't.
Interesting. Yeah, we all make these crazy assumptions and just not the way it has to work.
Yeah, like like could go horribly wrong. But
yeah, I guess. What could go super wrong? Do you have any ideas?
Like as I have the fundamentals of real estate kind of down packed, so I think I'm a little ahead of the curve on this one.
Consider you an expert.
Yeah, I'm doing okay with it, so I'm not too concerned. But if you had subjects like that, maybe if there was like a title issue or a lien issue or permits hadn't been pulled on the house or an inspection was not up to par, you could get screwed by making your own offer. But most of it's pretty like standard template stuff.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. And you said you could talk about money all day. I'm really curious. Like, what is it about money that drives you? Like what?
Well, I didn't grow up with a lot of it. So I think I was always like pretty attracted to it. And then I think if you even ask my parents now, it's like when they would give me money when I was like 13 or 14, I could just blow it. Like I could spend it on like instantly. And then I think when I was like in my like late high school years, still in my late teens before I turned 20, I got interested in AdWords, which is like the Google advertising, which is kind of like the entire reason that I ended up being here and loving technology so much. That was the funnest thing to spend money on ever because like just the mathematics behind it was like if you spent $1, you made $2 if you had good products. And so, I think before the age of 25, I'd probably seen like $500 million transacted go through Google AdWords through other companies that I had like either got to see or run through an account. And so I loved spending money at that point. To me, it was just like, you got to pull these levers, put more ads in certain places. And I saw just hundreds of millions of dollars made. And so that was always really fascinating to me. And then now that as I get older and I make more money and I can, buy and trade real estate and houses and I see investments in the stock market, I've like lost a decent amount of money during COVID too. That sucked when the market dropped in March. Not a good day. And so now it's just never ending and there's so much of it out there. And like to know that the US right now is like fighting over like, should we print $3 trillion or should we print $1 trillion? And the Democrats are like, more money, just print more money. There's no repercussions. And the Republicans are like, okay, like let's just do $1 trillion. And like ultimately at the end of the day, it's not a big difference. Like I was just reading before you came here of the $1 trillion that they're about to print because COVID happened. They're taking people's like weekly payments of $600 and they're going to take it down to $200, which sucks for humans. But they're going to invest $15 billion in a new FBI building. Like these are publicly available documents that like you just have money going into the stupidest of places. And I think one of the things that keeps me going on money is that I just don't understand. I don't have an economics background. I don't have a finance background, but I'm endlessly fascinated by it. And, literally in the last 6 months, we've seen almost $4 trillion printed out of thin air. And like you and I don't have that. We didn't even get $1 million of that. I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
I run a business that like could have been completely distraught or destroyed by COVID. And the government was like, we'll give you $40,000, but you have to pay it back in a year. And we're going to increase your taxes. Like, I just don't get it. Like, inflation went up. My net worth went down because inflation went up. And they just continuously keep printing and printing and printing.
Are you worried about that?
Yeah, terrified.
Yeah, because that kind of doesn't have any sort of backing, right? And I guess people's belief in the system matters, right? And if that's the case where you can just print more money, what's there to believe in now, What's your thoughts on that?
Gold had a really good week. Gold hit like a decent high on Tuesday.
Is that just because it's tangible, you think? Like people are starting to grab back on to those things that actually have value?
Yeah, like I took out, depressingly, I took all my Amazon stock out at like 2750. So like pretty high, but it did hit 3100 last week and I was like, shit, I should have left it in. But I like put most of it into crypto. I don't know. Could be worse, could be better. I'm not sure. I had a large payment on that reno too, but ultimately I'm like, I just don't trust this right now. And I have a lot of confidence that like the next bubble to burst, like 2008, you and I were like high school, didn't really like have assets. We didn't have a net worth. We didn't have a job. We didn't really know what the economy was doing. Like when this one pops, I can't say the same thing. Like I'm running a business. I do have money. I lost a little bit in March. I made most of it back. But like, I don't want to be caught with my hands tied.
And what does that mean for real estate then? Like,
God, I have no idea.
Just got to wait and see. Hey?
So the US and Canada do things a little bit differently. Interesting stat. In Canada, we do deferral payments on your mortgage. So if you're like one of the many Canadians that has a mortgage and COVID came and you got laid off and you were working from home, you immediately got put on CERB. Our government started giving you whatever it was, $600 a week or $1,200 a week or whatever it was. Yeah. So you start collecting CERB. You can now defer your mortgage payments for up to 6 months. Some banks are going to allow 12 months. Once you defer in Canada, when that 6 months is up, you have to start paying your regular mortgage payment again. Might be a little bit higher. We'll say $10 or $20. Probably not that much. Interest rates are at an all-time low. So if you refinance, you might actually get a lower rate. So they just extend the amortization period of your mortgage. That's a nice thing to do. That's what Canadians do. We always do the nice thing. Now in America, they do this thing called forbearance, which is significantly different. So they'll give you a 6-month forbearance period. At the end of 6 months, not only do you have to make your regular payment again, you owe the 6 months back. Now the bank is legally allowed to foreclose on your home if you don't make those payments. Now, I also believe financial institutions have very bad motives and could be some of the scammiest businesses I've ever seen in my life. They're just going to funnel people into different financial products that banks have. Like when I found out how much money like JP Morgan made like $20+ billion last year, like profit. Like that's not just made profit. Wow. RBC in Canada was like 11 billion. So like these are very profitable entities. They pay their shareholders a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just think that there's going to be something that like pops. People are not going to be able to make payments. If you like in the US, there's going to be a massive foreclosure crisis again. You can see people preparing for it. Like Rich, like the 6 banks have over $40 billion saved up in the last 2 quarters to prepare for the foreclosures that are about to come because they got to buy houses for dirt cheap.
Yeah. Wow.
It's endless. It's just endless. And it's hard to understand it all.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. That's like half opinion, but also half warning, you know?
You know what? Historically, going back 200 years, we have a recession every like 12 to 18 years. You mathematically can't disagree with that. You can see the markets. You can go back. There's like a couple of really good books on this, but every 18 years, there's an actual like bad one, like a recognizably bad one. 2008 was pretty bad because there was the most money that was ever in the economy. Right now, there's so much more money out there in the US that when this one pops, with the inflation being this high, it's got to be ugly. It's just got to be ugly. I don't know when, what, who, but there's a lot of money out there right now that's unwarranted and not where it should be. And so there has to be a rollback at some point. Like if we were to look at the US debt clock right now, it's like you'll have an aneurysm. You'll just freak out. You'll just be like, why is it moving so fast? Why is it all red?
Yeah, no kidding. Are you preparing yourself?
As best as I can.
Yeah. Like
kind of like we were talking about before, I think COVID deals are starting. I'm not a shark in the water. I don't have like a, $10 million fund where I'm going to go and invest in distressed assets when all the houses are foreclosed on. But like on a personal level, like, yeah, I was trying to save as much cash as I can when COVID deals come. Because I think that the next 12 to 18 months, it's like people are going to have to offload stuff because they either got laid off, they're going to go back to work, they're not going to make as much money because their company's not performing as well. And it's going to be very hard to perform as well in the upcoming, 6 to 12 months.
Even just with all the stress they've got on their shoulders.
That, yeah. Financial stress in households right now is going to be an all-time high. Like the mental health impacts of COVID are going to be horrible. You already see them. And so, yeah, like I'm absolutely preparing for it. But like, I'm not prepared like Warren Buffett, who has like 130 billion in cash sitting in his bank account, telling people that cash is a bad asset. Don't have too much of it. But like he's sitting on 130 billion in cash waiting to be a shark for when this bubble pops. Whatever the bubble may be, no one knows yet. But you are seeing like department stores, half of them filing for bankruptcy. Like those were pretty powerful entities for the last decade.
While Amazon stock is just skyrocketing too. Yeah.
All-time highs every week.
Yeah. Crazy. Wow. Where do you get most of your information from? It sounds like you're very well educated on all this stuff. Like, what do you do? Do you listen? Do you read?
Yeah, I definitely try and read for a couple hours a day.
Yeah. Books or articles or emails?
I definitely always have a couple books going.
Okay.
I definitely read like Fortune. Fortune keeps me updated on stuff. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. Like I kind of just get the daily like headlines.
Yeah.
Whichever ones interest me, maybe I'll deep dive into a bit further. The way to stay on top of startups for me is Crunchbase. So I get the daily Crunchbase email.
Okay.
I love that. Personal reading that I read every day. I read Seth Godin's emails.
Nice.
The Marketing King.
Yeah.
And the Language King. And I read The Daily Stoic from Ryan Holiday every morning.
Ooh, yeah. Big fan.
Yeah. Huge fan.
He's a beauty. Love Ryan.
I think those would be all my daily emails.
Yeah.
That'd be how I stay on top of stuff. Yeah.
Where do you fit that into your day? Is it spread out all over the day, or is it in the morning when your mind's fresh, you get all the reading out of the way?
Yeah, I have a startup routine. Like
Yeah.
I have a daily startup routine
Let's
that
hear
is
it.
just
What do
like,
you do?
it just crushes it. About 6 months ago, I got this app called Brain FM. Thank you, Jamie. And it's just amazing, man. So like I wake up, I read for like an hour and a half usually. That would be like a normal day. Like kind of roll out of bed, move a little bit, grab a coffee, sit outside on the deck, and
It's a beautiful deck.
yeah, just like have some coffee and like read my Kindle or a book. And then my boot up phase for work. No phones in the morning for that hour and a half. Like absolutely nothing. It's got to be very quiet. I grab a pair of headphones, my phone. I turn on Brain FM. I put in deep focus mode. I like usually will make a second cup of coffee, and then I plug in. And then I have like this. I do my accountability chart. So I open up my Excel sheet, whether it's on my cell phone or my laptop, it doesn't really matter. I love that I can do spreadsheets on my cell phones now. Like that's also one of my favorite things that's going on lately. So I do that. And then we use Monday as a task tracker for the company. And I really love that. So then I check Monday and then I go and do inbox zero. And then as soon as inbox zero's done, I try and get my day going. And my employees like kind of all start at sporadic times. We have a daily stand up at 11 a.m., but usually from, 7 till 11, I can be pretty plugged in with like one or two key meetings, like short meetings just to touch base with employees. And then, get all my important tasks done. But that boot up phase of like Brain FM, coffee, Brain FM, my like 3 tasks that I can just check the boxes of like, I did these today. They just click my brain on to be like, let's go.
Yeah, it seems to be a common trend, like even for myself. If you want to get stuff done, you got to have that clarity with no distractions in the morning, and morning routines are so important. Like I hear from several people that run their own businesses or athletes and whatever, where the morning routine is so crucial. And like how many people do you hear, just friends, that if they don't work out in the morning, they don't get it done, because your day can just get taken away from you, right?
Yep. You have the most energy in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, you can say that loosely with morning can mean any time to you. It might be 11 a.m. if you're a night owl. But when you wake up, you by far have the most energy. And there's like a bunch of little hacks that like we've also been taught by Jamie of like, always have a glass of water before you have your first cup of coffee. Like get that water in you. Cold showers. Just like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, blast yourself in a cold shower if you want to wake up and don't want to drink caffeine. It'll happen. You'll be forced to wake up.
No kidding.
That Brain FM technique, great way to plug in. It's just kind of like those neural beats, I would almost call them, but it's just very calming music for different situations. I'm
for sure gonna look into that. That's sweet. Brain FM.
I'll give you my login.
Yeah.
Save you some money.
All right.
Stupid expensive, I think.
Deal. Perfect. Do you find that there's a common trend with, I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot of great mentors, and I'm sure you've got friends that are also quite successful. Is there a common trend where they also have these morning routines in place?
You know what? Everyone's is different. Like you can't copy and paste this one. So it's what works for you. Like I used to, think that my 5:30 a.m. workouts were going to be like, were the best way that I was starting my day. And I was obsessed with them. Like there was like not a chance I was missing it Monday to Friday. But now I kind of just ask myself, I'm like, why do I even do that? Like I want like the minimum amount of exercise for the maximum amount of benefits. And I'd rather spend more time on like honing my mind way more. I think that like the end game for me is going to be using this, like my body will like handle it. And so like, I guess everyone's is different, but like I realized that my mornings actually slowing them down made me more productive.
Wow.
So going into that reading, which is just like primes my brain to like retain information, pick out things that I like, be very selective with what I'm inputting. And then going into work, I was like already kind of in this state of thinking. And I liked that. Whereas when I would work out in the morning, I'd get jacked up. Then I'd have to calm down. Then I have to go deal with humans, which is like, you're a little bit more reactive after you've went and pumped iron in the morning or like went for a hard run or a cycle or whatever it may be. And so, yeah, that was a great switch. I probably did that a year ago.
Cool. That's rad. What are some of the biggest takeaways you've gotten from other mentors, leaders, stuff that's really changed, your daily life, like, does anything come to mind?
Oh yeah, I have lots of them. Never say more than exactly what needs to be said.
Okay.
That's a big one. I can catch myself going off on rants about things that are completely irrelevant. And like people just don't want to hear it. Stay focused, stay on topic. The brutal honesty delivered kindly is huge. Anger will never serve you. It's a very stoic part of it. Yeah, the quietest one in the room is always the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
When you have someone in a room that's the quietest, but is paying the closest attention and just analyzing everything, like those are the people you want to talk to after. The loudest one in the room is usually like the least knowledgeable.
Just trying to be recognized as the person that's
more
smart.
More ego, yeah.
Interesting.
What are other great takeaways I've had? God, there's so many.
Yeah.
One that I've like really been embracing lately is just like do what makes you happy. And like finding out what makes you happy is so important. Like, when I was in therapy kind of earlier this year, actually I go to therapy like weekly, so that's a different story, but
I would love to talk about that because I think that therapy's kind of got this negative stigma where people think that you need something wrong to have therapy, where I think that that's completely opposite, where you can always optimize yourself and therapy can just help in general,
Yeah, she's my brain doctor. I don't want to like get sappy and say I owe my life to her or anything, but like I owe a lot to her.
Wow.
she has significantly changed my life and helped me, number one, like transition that focus of the things that are like, it used to just be work stuff that I was so passionate about. Now I'm like I care way more about like my relationship with my parents and my brother and like how my family's doing. I put way more emphasis on them since working with her over the last few years. I've learned so much about boundaries. Like, good God, how much better your life will get when you learn what boundaries you need to set for yourself with people, like personal relationships, love relationships, work relationships. When you know your boundaries and you know the others' boundaries, you're just setting yourself up to be happier.
What kind of boundaries are you talking about? Like knowing when to not push buttons, or knowing when to not ask questions, or, you know, like
a big one for me is like, if I do get angry about something, I need to walk away. But I also need to tell my like significant other that I'm coming back. And I've actually probably with everyone in my life that I've ever like gotten angry at, my best reaction is like, I need to cool off. Like, I need to walk away, go be alone. And if I like just say like, I just need like 10 minutes or a day and I'll come back and we'll resolve this, that's like way more effective than staying in the moment and trying to hash through it. Nothing good will come for that for me. So that's like a big boundary for me. It's like, if something doesn't go like the way that I wanted it, or like, you know, this doesn't happen that often, but like, or if there's conflict, actually conflict's probably the better one. If conflict arises, I know that I need to step back, go clear my head, take a break, and then come back. So that's a boundary for me.
Okay.
You know, I have a couple coworkers that are like, when I am on vacation, you are not allowed to message me. Even if you see me online, even if I text you, like, it's weird things, but people need boundaries around like the things that they love.
Yeah.
Golfing's one for me. Like, I've really taken up golfing this year. And that's been like, I let my company know that like, when I am on the golf course, you call me if it's urgent. Don't message me bullshit. Like, let's just not. I'll put it in my calendar. You will know if I'm not here. And, you know, that's made me a lot happier.
And
probably
time to focus on your game even. Yeah.
It's also probably helped with my relationships, right? Because they don't send me something and then I just whip back something snippy to be like, why are you bugging me? I'm on the golf course.
Totally. They know Josh's boundary has been set. He's on the golf course. I'm going to wait till after.
Like, cool. Wanting to have date nights, like having that quality time. Like, that was another one with like my recent ex-girlfriend. Like, it was so like the emphasis that she wanted to have put on quality time was so important that I didn't recognize how important it was to her. And I would do things that for me are quality time, which are like, I could go on a double date with her and another couple. And to me, that's like, that would be quality time. Like, I'm pretty happy. I'm very happy all the time. Like, when that was happening, but to her, it wasn't.
Okay.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it comes out at the end of a relationship and you're like, well, shit.
Yeah.
That would have been nice to know. But yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, there's so many boundaries that I've learned. And just having open conversations about them. Like, don't show up late to shit. I had a coworker that I paid, like, guy was very high, one of the highest paid guys I've ever had in the company, kind of as like an advisor consultant. And he was always like 5 to 7 minutes late. And he would come into meetings eating food. And I could have thrown my laptop at him. Like, I was so mad. And it happened twice and then like brought it up. Didn't happen for a couple weeks. Happened again. But then my entire company started to get frustrated by it and we figured it out. But like, it's a boundary for our companies. Like, if you're going to be late, just don't even show up.
Yeah.
Unless you have like a real reason, like, just don't even show up.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Tom Bilyeu talks about relationships. Like, obviously communication is important, but he says defining terms is super important, where like the word important, for instance, I remember him saying in his relationship, the word important means you're doing this from now on. And it's almost like you're saying like boundary setting. If you say it's important that you take your cup off the table and bring it to the sink at night kind of thing, then it's like no holds bar. I'm doing that for the rest of our relationship. It's not like you're going to try and get away with it. You know what I mean? It's the boundary set.
Like making the bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Like that's a easy one. That's exactly like that. It's like, do you really not make your bed in the morning? Like, let's just do like the little things to make this look nice.
Yeah, totally. Cool. I like to, I want to start implementing asking 3 questions at the end of every interview. So I thought I'd bring these out and get your take on them. First one is, in the last few months, what is your biggest recent discovery, whether it be an app, a tool, or an exercise that has impacted your life for the better?
Brain FM and Readwise. The Readwise app is a layer on top of your Kindle that sends you a daily email of all the books that you've read on Kindle and the sections that you've highlighted. So like every morning I get this like 5 to 10 highlighted books that I've read over the last decade, and it's increased my retention so much and probably made my storytelling better, because now I love referencing books, and it's been nice like app that I found.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to get that. That's cool. Do you have a recent podcast episode or any books that have been blowing your mind lately?
I definitely enjoyed the Hugh Jackman, Tim Ferriss, but I love everything Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, of course.
So,
he's a legend.
Yeah, you could go all the way back in those days and pick out a lot of those. What other books have I read lately that I was really, really happy with? I recently read like Epicurus, The Happy Life or The Pleasant Life.
Okay.
Old Stoic philosophy book. But How to Live a Pleasant, Happy Life. I had a lot of takeaways from that book.
What's the top takeaway?
For me, I guess where the stage for me was, it was like just the dedication of being like in the moment and doing what like I want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like another place to find motivation.
Yeah.
So I found that there were a lot of tidbits in that book that like made me think about like, it's very stoic to like be in the moment, be focused, be wise and thoughtful, and to not waste your breath or not waste energy, be conservative. And so I think a lot of the world that we're in right now, and after like 5-6 months of like a pandemic, virtual tigers everywhere, distractions everywhere, I see friends now that are just so heavily distracted, running from what's happening and like not in the moment and not getting done what they were meant to be getting done. And I like really want to like spend more time dedicating myself to the task at hand.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I dig it. All right. Last one. If you could give Josh, before he started his business, any advice that would have saved him some time or pain up until this point, what would it be?
People first.
People first.
Yeah.
It came quick.
Yeah. It's all people first. A really good example that I was reading about the other day was when COOs or CFOs take over the CEO's job in like big companies. Mm-hmm. They use examples of like Steve Ballmer with Microsoft and with Tim Cook at Apple. Actually, there was another guy in the middle there, the guy from Pepsi, John Scully, when he took over Apple. Yeah. And there's many other examples of this, but when the COO or the CFO or whoever it may be goes into takes over and becomes a CEO, it's always, what is it? It's always revenue, growth. If this is the CFO or COO, it'll be revenue, growth, people.
Mm-hmm. In that order, yeah.
Yeah, and you need to flip the order. Gotcha. It's got to be people, growth, revenue. Yeah. And as soon as people come first, you start to realize that a business can't be built without people. Mm-hmm. And you have to treat your people right. You have to incentivize and compensate them right. And you have to build a results-oriented work environment. Like that's the Best Buy model of like Row. And when people see results and perform within that, that's when they really get hooked on like doing things that are great. And, you know, they'll be committed to the work that they do and they'll enjoy what they do. Mm-hmm. And I love to give people autonomy. And so too much autonomy without having some structure doesn't make people happy. Mm-hmm. And so I think the last 2 years have been so much focus on just putting our people first. You know, our number one OKR for 2020 was to continuously grow and retain the people that we have.
What's an OKR? Sorry.
An objective key result.
Okay, gotcha.
If you're an entrepreneur, Measure What Matters, John Doerr, the #1 book you have to read.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool. I dig it. And I know I said that was the last question, but that brought me to lead to another one. Who is the best leader you've ever worked with or conversed with? Just the best leader.
Brad Feld from Foundry Group.
Yeah.
And the combination, I'll put Jason Mendelson in there. He's recently retired. I miss you a lot if you ever hear this, but I think that combination of leaders from Foundry Group and the impact that they've had globally with their venture capital firm, it's very hard. It's very hard to explain. They've truly changed the world with what the investments and the people and the culture that they've built for a venture capital firm. Brad Feld just did a podcast with Tim Ferriss.
Oh, wow.
I haven't listened to it yet, but it came out yesterday. And
it's a big deal.
Yeah. And Brad, like, I've had lunch with the guy a few times, and he's a very, very interesting character. Incredibly smart. And he's had an amazing life. Like, I've read all of his books, and, we're lucky enough to have them as, partners invested in our company. So we get to hang out with them quite often and learn a lot from them. And those are definitely the two best leaders that I've had like the pleasure to hang out with and work with.
Mm-hmm. And are some of those, I guess, key takeaways that you've kind of spoken about throughout this episode, are some of those coming directly from Brad?
Yeah, Brutal Honesty Delivered Kindly was Foundry 101.
Yeah, cool.
Huge takeaway for us. They live a give first motto too. Like, I think that's also the Techstars way. It's give first.
Yeah.
Don't ask, just like give, and it's way easier to live that way.
I like that. I think that's the perfect note to end on here. I just want to thank you for being here, Josh.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks.
Appreciate it, man. Super fun. Cheers. Thanks, guys.